for inviting me to join you today. I would also like to say, as Todd shared that lovely introduction, that I must officially claim the title of the least famous person you've had speak to you at this event in 30 years. And I am completely comfortable with that because I am here to speak for the horses. I am here as their messenger, and they are what bring us all together tonight, and they are the calling to which I've answered in my work that I'll share with you a little bit today. I thought in the spirit of these remarks, I had maybe a couple stories, 2 or 3 maybe individual stories that I wanted to share and sprinkle in a bunch of horse fun facts so that when you go out into the world, whether that be to the track tomorrow or home to where you come from, you have that interesting thing you can say you learned when you went to the PNC day at the races. And especially helpful if you can't really prove what you won at the racetrack, you can say that you came home with something fun that you can share with people. So that is my plan for this evening, and I am very grateful to be here. The first story that I wanted to share, it was without being duplicative, is a bit of the story that Todd shared of how I came to do what I'm doing. I grew up in Southern California, in San Diego, which is a very, very beautiful corner of the world, and felt very lucky that my mom was pursuing her life dream of horseback riding when she started her career. We moved to San Diego in '74, and she took me with her to the barn when she started taking horseback riding lessons. So I was 5 years old when I was first exposed to horses in any real way, and immediately fell in love with this little brown bay mare named Sweetie, and she kept me company while my mom was off taking her riding lessons. Well, lucky me, as the only child of 2 very devoted parents, they decided that horses were going to be my siblings. I say all my siblings had 4 hooves, and it was a wonderful, charmed way to grow up. I lived at the barn, I did pony club, I did fox hunting with my mom and horse shows, and it was wonderful. All through that journey, I was the little girl in the library reading every single book about horses. I was also the little girl who was very, very timid and very, very quiet, and was only confident when I was at the barn. So I would like to say, as I think about my mom and my dad tonight, that to see me standing before an audience of 265 people and to be screaming at you with all my joy about horses, I thank them, and I thank the horses, who really are who've given me every great gift I've received in my life. And I start that with those lessons learned as a little girl at the barn, but I'll continue them through the fact that it was there I learned not only to be confident, but to be brave and to take risks like going across country to go to the University of Virginia, which I took my horse along with me for the ride, because Virginia looked just like all those books I'd been reading as a kid in the library. They all were full of green rolling hills and trees, and I had grown up with a lot of sagebrush, cactus, and rattlesnakes, and I was ready for those green fields of Virginia. So horses brought me to Virginia, to UVA, an amazing school full of amazing friends, and ultimately to Washington, D.C., where I pursued my career. And it was there that I was introduced to my husband, the Bob Weir that Todd just mentioned to you. He had a very different childhood, but horses were still very much a part of his growing up. His grandfather took him to the racetrack when he was probably 12 years old in Calder, which is, anyone know where Calder racetrack is? It's right, it's in Miami, southern Florida. It's not one of the glamorous racetracks, let's be clear. And his grandfather took him to the racetrack and he said, "Son, we are gamblers, and here's the book of how you do it." That book was written by a guy named Andy Beyer. It's called Picking Winners, and it's one of the ultimate tomes. If you're interested in this game that you played a little bit today at Churchill and you want to really learn sort of the original script of how to pick winners, take a look at that book. But that is where it started for my husband. So here we were, sort of 2 ships going these different trajectories, totally different. One was the front of the house, all about the numbers, all about the game, all about the cash. The other, all about these animals, all about their beauty, all about the lessons that they teach. And here we were, sort of like the peanut butter and chocolate in the Reese's peanut butter cup. We collide in the Washington, D.C. area with our friends saying, "Well, you guys both love horses, you should definitely go on a date." So we went on a date at a racetrack. We went to Laurel, Maryland, which is another really cool track, has a tremendous history. It's has ups and downs in terms of glamour, but it is a track that we spent a lot of time at. And it is there that I started learning really about thoroughbred racing. That was not part of my childhood. It was just this backdrop. In San Diego, we had this beautiful racetrack, the Del Mar racetrack, which I recommend highly, but I didn't know much about it. So I'd like to say that he's had a much bigger influence on me over these years than I probably have on him. But he took me to Saratoga when we were early in our married days, and he said, this is Mecca. This is the holy ground of horse racing, the oldest continuously running racetrack in the United States. This is your first fun fact. The Saratoga racetrack opened in 1863. And if you think about your history lessons, a few other things were going on in our country in 1863. And that racetrack began and has run continuously ever since, and it is really a special, special place. So he took me there, and in some ways the rest is history. We fell in love with the town, and we spent the rest of our married life traveling every spare minute to the horse races, including beautiful Churchill Downs. Our first Derby was 1997, and if I hopefully don't get that wrong, that was Silver Charm, a horse that many have heard of, who Bob Baffert trained. And so horse racing has been a part of our lives, and it has given, as I said a second ago, every great gift in my life, from the lessons of my childhood, to my best friend, to my husband, to the town that I now live in, to all of my new friends here today at PNC, and even to the work that I do for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. This is just one simple story, not terribly memorable, but it's the kind of thing that shows you what horses can do. Horses do two things. They bring us all together, and they take us around the world. They cross all boundaries because they don't see any boundaries. And I want to just spend a few minutes just to talk about them. As I said, I'm here to speak for the horses and answer questions when that comes up. The things that I feel like when you go to the racetrack you just may not know. I'm going to throw a few of these thoughts out there. And as having been a school teacher is one of the other jobs I've had that wasn't even in my bio, I love to do the quiz. So I'm going to do this. First of all, how do I do this so that you can do your hands? The horses that will run on Saturday, this is we'll do multiple choice. They are all running on Saturday and they're all the same age. Is that age 10 years old? You can raise your hand. Is that age 5 years old? Is it 3 years old?
Yeah.
A plus for the whole class. That is a good start. Now, the thing that I'd like to talk about for a few minutes with the 3-year-old year, so I'm going to dive into these horses that we just watched all afternoon. These horses are entirely created thoughtfully with intent by humans, by individuals, by friends like our friend Todd and Mary, who are involved in breeding. This has not happened accidentally. Not a single horse we saw today was a stray or a mutt of any kind. They are created with all kinds of research and all kinds of thoughts about which mare and which sire are going to come together and create this new foal. And every single foal, I will go ahead and say it, I believe, is born with the hope that it will run on the first Saturday in May at Churchill Downs. That is the driving force of all folks who breed horses. But they are bred with this very, very hands-on approach. And as a result, they are coddled and cared for every moment before they even arrive in this world. And as they arrive in this world, starting in the early months of any year, the first hands that touch them, the first touch they receive is often human hands as they are arriving into the world. And as they come up and they look at their mom and they stand on those wobbly legs, the first two-legged thing they see is a human, and that will be a human in their eyesight almost constantly for the remainder of their days as a baby and going through their racing career. They are imprinted with humans. And their mom, their mare, is very, very important, but they are only with that mare for a short period of time before they are weaned, about 6 months to 9 months before they're weaned. They are with people more than they are with any other creature. So these horses that we watch today are bred for our enjoyment. They are bred for the beauty of the sport that we just enjoyed. They are bred to perform at their highest level and to be their best selves. But they are incredibly reliant on us these animals are hot house flowers, as I describe them. They are beautiful, they are rugged, they are strong, they are fast, but they cannot do a whole lot of things for themselves. One thing they really can't do is speak, which is something I'm terribly grateful for, and it gives me something to talk about. But I want to take you through what their life is like, just to bring you up to this 3-year-old day that they're all aiming for. Is their first, they're all born in the beginning of the year. The hope is that they will be born between January and no later than June. Because here's another one of these fun facts and sort of trivia questions that I'll ask you, is that they all have the same birthday. So does anyone in this room know what day all thoroughbreds have their birthday? Yeah, there's got a couple bringers in here. I see that one at table 11, 13? You know that day.
January 1.
Excellent, a gold star for that guy at table 11. This is an interesting fact. If you have all read anything like Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, it's one of my favorite books. It's an interesting book about all kinds of things, but one of them has a whole study on hockey players. So NHL hockey players almost all have the same birth months, and it's the same kind of concept here, which is that horses we say that they all turn the same age on January 1st because we need them to be the same year as they go forward into the year ahead for racing. Races are organized by the age of the horse, like we just discussed, that Churchill Downs Kentucky Derby is 3 years old. So if they're not all the same year at the same time, we can't figure out when to have them race. So we create this arbitrary and kind of crazy date that on January 1st they all turn a new year, regardless of what day they were foaled. So you can think about this, that you certainly will start to want your foal to be born pretty early the year before, because if it's born on December 31st, it's going to turn 1 year old on January 1st. That's not a good situation for a racehorse. So you want your foals born, if you can, in February, March, May, April, and then you start getting, the later you get, this is something you can look at on Saturday if you're here at the races or when you're watching on TV, is that as you look at the paddock on Saturday, you look at all those beautiful horses, all 20, will there be 20 or will there be full 20 this year? They're gonna all be beautiful, for sure, I 100% guarantee that, but they're not all going to be the same size, even though they will all be 3 years old. And this is this sort of inside baseball you can take to all your friends as you're watching your derby parties. You can say, look at those, maybe ask for a guessing game, look at the one that looks the tallest, and look in their information in the program and to find out what their foaling date was. Because you will see a wide variety between those that were born in February, those that were born late in the year, and they're still all 3 years old and they're still all running in that race on that day. They go through that first year of their life being babies, and they look like babies, and that's why being in Kentucky in the spring is a wonderful thing, because you see mares and foals everywhere. But as they get to their 1 year old birthday, things start getting kind of real for them. They have about 1 year to just be babies in the field. 1 year old, they're going to start getting ready for their future, because it comes up pretty fast when your big races are in their 3 year old year. In Saratoga, there's a very big yearling sale that Todd has alluded to. It's sort of when the world comes together, as horses tend to bring us all together. They come together at the sales in Saratoga, it's the select sales. This is where 1 year old horses that have just turned 1 in, let's say this year, it'll be August of 2023, they'll be 8 months, 9 months into their 1 year old life, they're going to be auctioned off as prospects. It's a horse that's never had a person on its back. It's never done anything other than learn how to stand still and look good, because it's going to be evaluated for its conformation, and then it goes off to auction. And these babies go for millions of dollars as they are all dreaming of maybe this Saturday in May. But the yearling sales in Saratoga are a very, very big highlight, and that the 1 year old year is the year you're getting them. You're still not doing much with them, but you're putting them into your program so that when they turn 2, everything starts happening. Their 2 year old year is a very big year, because it's the year we start putting someone on their back, and they have to learn everything they need to know to run in that circle as fast as they can with a whole other herd of horses. This is where I'm talking a little bit about them as herd animals. It's one of my favorite parts of watching and learning racing, is that horses are herd animals. That means they are best and happiest and safest in a group, and they count on that. They have extraordinary acuity for hearing and seeing. They can see 180 degrees with their big eyes. They can hear extremely well. So they do very well, as we see them today, running at full speed very close to each other, because they're used to doing that. That's what they do with their galloping around as babies. But they have to learn how to do the things like loading in the starting gate, probably one of the scariest things a horse has to learn to do. It's a metal contraption, and it has to stand still and wait for some loud bell to go off. They also have to learn how to keep going to the left, how to change leads when it's time to go fast. All those things happen in their 2 year old year. But we also want to start figuring out which are the good ones. So even though they're just learning how to be a horse, how to be an actual racehorse, how to go to the racetrack, how to be saddled up and taken to the track for training, the trainers and the jockeys and the exercise riders are trying to sort of sort them out. So Saratoga, where I live, plays a really important role in that because we are known as the place for the premier 2-year-old races because it's July and August that we run in Saratoga. So those same horses that all turn 2 years old on the January 1st, they're now kind of getting long in the tooth. That's actually a very true horse phrase because horses whose their teeth keep long in the tooth, if I said that wrong, long in the tooth because their teeth keep growing as they get older. But they're getting older in their 2-year-old year and they're getting ready to really be in that big year. For whatever reason, and Todd may have better answers than I, the 3-year-old year is when we think they're their fastest. And it's a combination of almost full maturity, but not so big that they've gotten really heavy and too heavy to go fast. So the 2-year-old races in Saratoga are the best in the country. Horses come from all over the country and all over the world to run in Saratoga because we're really trying to suss out who will be the best ones for the year ahead, and we're also getting ready for Breeders' Cup, which is what happens in November, and that's the World Championship of Horse Racing. So I share all that to sort of get a little sense of what these horses have gone through as they get into this 3-year-old year and what brings them to Churchill Downs. And I say that as a backdrop to what I'm going to share about what happens after their racing career. So another quiz for the audience to keep you with me is that if you were to guess, I'm going to give you that multiple choice again, they start racing at 2 and they run in their big races at their 3-year-old year. Let's talk about how long they race. Like how long is an average racehorse's career? There's a lot of flexibility here, but I'm going to go ahead and do the same guesses. Is it until they're 10 years old? If you think so, raise your hand. Is it 5 years old? Raise your hand. Is it 3 years old? It is somewhere between 3 and 6 is the average. Let's just say that's the average racing season. And there are those wonderful war horses who will keep running. They just love running and they're sound and they're strong and they go till they're 8 and sometimes 9 and every now and then like longer. But that's their career. It's a 3 to 4 year old career, assuming they don't retire right after like the Derby, which will probably happen. So the next question, which really leads to what I do and the work of the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, is to think for this moment about the rest of their life. How long is that? And it's the kind of thing that, as Todd said, my favorite phrase is if you're not aware, you can't care, and we really can't know things no one's ever told us, so this is not that it's ever wrong to not know a fact. I'd love to do this guessing game again. What is the life expectancy of a horse? So I'll give you some options. This is a thoroughbred horse. We're just talking about this breed. Is the life expectancy 8 to 10 years? Raise your hand if you think so. All right. How about 12 to 15? A few more takers there. How about 15 to 20? We're getting closer. How about 20 to 25? And how about 25 to 30? That is the answer. Thoroughbred horses live an average age of 25 to 30 years of age. That is the average life expectancy of a thoroughbred horse. And that is probably the most important fun fact I want to leave you with today. I'm not done, of course, but I want you to let that one sink in. Because, let's face it, you all do math all day long. That's a whole lot of years. So the really, really good thing, and this will get into the story. The first story you just heard of Bobby and me. The second story is the story of the organization that I have the great privilege of speaking for. It addresses this important fact. It's not necessarily an issue, it's not necessarily a problem. It's a fact that horses live till they're 30 and they only race till they're 6. So this is a story that I love dearly, and I think there's a lot that I want you to consider in the context of what you've just done today, because you've all come together today and you've met a bunch of people, some of whom you knew and some of whom you didn't, and all kinds of magical things happen when you get people together. And I just want to underscore that horses bring people together regularly. So this story is just like that, but it has a different outcome. So in the 1970s was a great time for horse racing. This year at the Derby, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of this amazing horse named Secretariat, who won the Kentucky Derby 50 years ago. That whole decade of the 70s was great for horse racing, and so it was very much in the public eye. Well, sometime in the late 70s, a woman named Monique Kohler was reading a magazine article about thoroughbred racehorses, and unfortunately, this article is one that is written over and over again. It was about horses that had been found in a terrible situation, probably an auction, and these horses, while they'd been designed by humans and loved and coddled and raised and loved, they had found themselves into a terrible spot. And she read that article, and it struck her, because she couldn't believe that was happening. She couldn't believe that these creatures that had been created with such care and such love had been left to have something terrible happen to them. And I think we've all read something like that, whether that was about horse racing or some other cause that we care about. We've all read the thing, and Lord knows the world is full of those messages. But here's what I love about Monique, is she read that article that day, and she just decided, this will not stand. I'm gonna get out of my chair, I'm gonna go do something. I don't know what I'm gonna do. She was an advertising executive in New York City. She was a dynamo, I've heard all about her, but she, as far as I know, was not a horsewoman. She didn't own a farm. She just read an article and she decided it wasn't just enough to feel bad. It was that she was gonna do something about it. So what she did is she got on the train and she took the subway over to Belmont Park, which was a pretty popular place in the late 70s. You'd had Seattle Slew, you'd had Secretariat. It was a great time, and she just simply said, "Hi, my name's Monique. We must save the racehorses." This had never been done in the United States. Racing had been around for centuries, but it just had never come to the collective consciousness that we can't let these creatures that we've created fall into harm's way in this way. We need to get ahead of this. So she made this organization happen. She was our founder, and she was the right person at the right time and the right place. You never know when those three things are going to happen. In fact, I dare say it might have happened today while we were at the racetrack, and you're just waiting to find out what that was. In her case, she was there when everyone was loving horse racing, and horse racing was a beloved sport in the United States. People were loving it and excited about it. They were shocked to find out that bad things were happening, and she was there to not only be the alchemy, to light that kindling, but she also was running into people like Penny Chenery, the owner of Secretariat, Alaire Dupont, the owner of Kelso, and they were the original members of the board of directors for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. In 1983, we were founded. So while this is the 30th anniversary of the PNC Day at the Races, and it is the 50th anniversary of Secretariat's Kentucky Derby, it is actually the 40th anniversary of the founding of the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, and I feel very honored to share this story with you today. But the really fun part of the story of Monique is that while she was a great gal who got up and did the thing and asked the people, she said, "We're gonna save the horses," I love the next part of this story even more, because it's where we just don't know what the script is until we're living it. Here she was, buttonholing everyone she knew, saying, "We gotta raise the money, we gotta save the horses." And she probably came to Saratoga, because really everyone comes to Saratoga in the summer. She knew everybody she wanted to talk to would be there. So as she was out there on one of these porches on Union Avenue, it's a beautiful road, please come visit, she was buttonholing people, and I like to imagine, a little bit of Hallmark license taken with the story, because I don't know how this part happened. She was out there asking people for money, and someone said, "Young lady, this is a great idea. I think it's wonderful that you're going to save the horses, but where are you going to put them?" Was the question. And I'm thinking that she, as someone who does a little bit like what I do all day, I was like, "That is a great question. I'm going to get back to you." I don't know what her answer was. I don't ever want to find out what her answer was. I know she wasn't taking him home to her apartment in New York City. But the great thing is, and this is why we have to get together like we did today, the great thing is this same person, this imaginary skeptic that crossed his arms and said, he then said, "Well, maybe you should go over there and talk to that guy who's also at this party. His name is Howard Nolan. He was a state senator from the Albany region in New York. He was a racing fan. He was a breeder of thoroughbreds, state senator, and he happened to be a guy who sat on the corrections committee in the state legislature." So she trotted over to him and said, "Okay, I'll talk to anyone. Hi, I'm Monique. I'd like to talk to you about the horses." And he said, "Well, the prison down in Wallkill, New York," and I just like to stop here and think, she's looking at him like, "What? I'm here to talk about the horses. Why are you talking to me about prisons? Did you just say prison? Why are you talking about prisons?" And maybe you had that conversation today where suddenly someone's like, "Why are we talking about this?" Well, what that man had in store changed the course of history, changed the course of our organization, and I do think it changed the course of history, because what he said was, "I know this prison called Wallkill Correctional Facility downstate in New York. They just purchased a dairy farm, an old dairy farm. I know why they purchased it. It's because they're building a maximum security prison, which is called Shawangunk." This was back in the 80s. And they just needed some buffer land. I mean, you guys are in the land business, buffer land. I'm sure it's a thing you run into. So they bought this land just to put buffer between the two prisons. And he said, "I don't know, maybe you could put some horses there." That is literally how our organization was founded, and we weren't founded to save the horses, but from the very first horse that got off the van into the care of the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, that horse stepped off the van at the Wallkill Correctional Facility in Wallkill, New York, at prison. His name was Promised Road, which you cannot make up. I wish I could have made that up. Such a good name. And he began not only the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation's herd, but he also began our Second Chances program, the TRF Second Chances program, which we call with our little tagline, Saving Horses and Changing Lives. So those horses that got off the van and followed Promised Road, and we have had over 2,000 horses come to our care over these 40 years, they have gotten off the van to live out their days as horses, to live out those 25 and 30 years as horses, but they've done it in a place where they've been able to teach the same things, and I will say the exact same things that I learned as a little girl in San Diego. They taught these guys, gals, and young men confidence, calm, empathy, responsibility, accountability, hard work, disappointment, a little bit of heartbreak, and how to get dirty, how to get hurt, how to get back up again. And these men and women, and now the youth in our juvenile program, are learning those lessons at a point in their life that is giving them the chance to go back into the world better than they ever were. And that's the thing that horses do. Horses make our lives better, and they do it without ever being asked anything. They don't ask anything of us. They do that by being themselves. So the TRF has a really cool story, but the cool story is one I want you to take to heart, because it's the kind of thing that happens when great folks like Todd and the team at PNC gather a lot of people together who haven't necessarily met before. You just don't know what story you're a part of with the work that you do in affordable housing, that you're changing lives every day. And I just think that our story is one that I would be very delighted to share with you as we have this opportunity tonight. Before I go, I wanted to give you just a few fun facts about the organization. So now that I've got you to this role of thinking about horses and how long they live, I was asked today several times, what happens to these horses that we watch today when their careers are over, now that we've decided that that's between 5 and 6? Your answer to tell your friends is there's really 3 paths. There's the path of that we probably have heard most about, which is when they're successful, they have more options, just like kids leaving college. It's a lot of the same analogy. So if they've been successful as on the racetrack as colts and fillies, they have an opportunity to pursue breeding as their career and to continue to bring new and successful racehorses into the world. And I would like to say that that's probably maybe 20% of the horses. That's a little bit of imaginary statistics, but that happens a lot. There's a lot of breeding. It's a big, big industry. The next swath of those horses, let's go ahead and say that it was 20, so I'm going to say now 60. 60% of them go on to second careers, just like what Todd was sharing with us. These creatures are created as athletes to go fast, to be smart, to be nimble, to do all the things, and they are also good at doing that in all the other disciplines you could imagine. So racehorses can be cutting horses, racehorses can be polo ponies, show horses, eventers, dressage. They can be really anything that involves a horse and rider. A thoroughbred can be it, and they'll do it if they think their human wants them to. They are so imprinted upon us, they just need to know which direction we want them to go. And so that's option number 2, and it's our favorite option. I'll come back to Monique for a second and say that when she created us, and when we were founded 40 years ago, we were the only organization of our kind in the United States. It was a shiny, exciting thing, and also a terrible, terrible thing. It's a big world. 20,000 foals are born a year today, and one organization can't be the safety net for all of them. So what Monique did when she created us is she also created something much bigger. She was eventually given the Eclipse Award for her work in the thoroughbred industry, for founding the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, but actually for founding what is an industry called the Thoroughbred Aftercare industry. It's all of the organizations that take care of those horses in that 60%, which is, what are you going to do when you grow up and leave the racetrack and you're going to do something else? Many, many of these organizations retrain and rehome horses and put them into that next career, and we love them and we applaud them and we hope that that will happen. And then the last 20% of all these horses are the ones that we take care of. We are that safety net for what we call sanctuary, horses that cannot pursue that second athletic career. Or maybe our second or third athletic career. We will take, frankly, the broken and the old. That is our role, and we are very, very proud to do it, because what we've found is that these horses, no matter their age, are going to give their whole hearts to us. And that's what they do through our TRF Second Chances programs. They come to us every day with no judgment. They don't know what you did 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. They just need to know right now, are you here to help them or hurt them? And that is a leveling way to look at the world. It's another thing to think about, maybe even in your world where you're working with housing in different environments, is that the ability to look at the world without judgment is a powerful thing, and that is what horses have every day. Which leads me to perhaps my last fun fact. It's one that I use a lot. Racehorses, thoroughbreds, and all horses actually, I think this is true, all equines, they are the largest, physically largest, domesticated prey animal, period. That's the sentence. Largest domesticated prey animal, that's P-R-E-Y. So if you think about the world in terms of prey and predators, and that's sort of how we all shake out, we're all on one side or the other of that line. These animals are not predators. They are big, they are strong, they have hooves and they have teeth, but they are not designed to be on the aggressor. They are reaction, which means that they have to be constantly assessing friend or foe, friend or foe. Their only tools are their hooves, their speed, and their teeth, which is not gonna save them from a lion, but it could get you off their, get you away from them if they think you're threatening to them. And that one fact, that fact that they are the largest domesticated prey animal, really kind of comes all the way full circle to why they are so powerful in what we watch at the racetrack today. They are responding not because they are aggressive, even though when we see them in the paddock, they look a little like fire-breathing dragons. That's just a performance machine on high-test fuel, ready to go. But you'll see that same fire-breathing dragon, if my friend Melanie's hat blows off, which it didn't, for the record, that hat will be the scariest thing in that horse's world. Even though it's a 1,200-pound animal, primed to run the fastest race of its life, it could be as simple as a tissue blowing in the wind, and it will lose its mind, and we perceive that as dangerous, but think about that. It's not dangerous that it's attacking. It's dangerous in that it is fearful. So they are relying on us. They are fragile, they are extraordinary, they are beautiful, but they are also very, very dependent on us. And so it is a beautiful marriage, a symbiotic one, where we get so much joy and so much love and so much healing and hope from these animals, but they're also relying on us to give that back to them. That's why they love it so much when you applaud, when they come stampeding down that home stretch on Saturday. They love to please the people that they have been raised by. So horses are amazing. My friend Melanie and I like to call them magical, because they do bring us all together. They do level all playing fields. They bring the kings from the richest of places to the humblest of hot walkers and grooms together, and we all come together because of their beauty. So I'm going to finish with this last story, because it is all about how these horses bring us together.